Hello, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video, which is my January TBR. Now, first off, I just want to say that if you celebrate Christmas, I hope you had a wonderful Christmas, and if you don't celebrate Christmas, then I hope you had a wonderful weekend and a wonderful start to your week. We're currently in that limbo between Christmas and New Year's, and I am living it up. I have basically done nothing. I roll out of bed in the morning, I read, and when I need a break from reading, I watch TV or a movie, and then I go back to reading. It has been heaven. But it also means that I kind of have just thrown myself together to film this video. So my apologies for looking very sort of undone, as it were. But for January, this is kind of a theme we're going for. I'm trying to really focus on reading books that I feel like are going to be easy, kind of chilled out reads for me. So I'm really focusing on shorter books, on books in genres that I particularly enjoy and find easy to read, and also books by author that I know that I have a pretty good relationship with. I honestly just felt like I needed to give myself not necessarily a palate cleanse, but just a reset, because I spent so much of the end of 2021 really focusing on reading the Outlander books, which are massive tomes, and I plowed through them. And while I did enjoy them, I can't lie and say that it wasn't exhausting. So this is a little bit of a reset, giving myself some chill time, not participating in any readathons or anything like that, just sitting back and enjoying some books. So why don't we dive right in? The first book that I want to talk about is probably the only outlier on this list, and that's the book that I'm reading for the Found in Translation book club that I'm hosting with Noelle and Annie during 2022. And our first book that we chose was actually Breasts and Eggs by Miyako Kawakami. And it's not that this book is a tome, it is under 500 pages. I think it's just a little over 400 pages. But just based on the subject matter and the fact that it is a translated work, these tend to require a little bit more brain power than the other books I think I will be reading this month. It is translated from Japanese, and it is a book that I have genuinely been interested in reading for some time. From what I understand, the book is really about like female body autonomy in modern day Japan and kind of exploring what beauty standards and feelings about reproduction and fertility in Japan, like what that has as far as an impact on women. So I'm very excited to read about this. I don't know if we've decided on a live show date. If we have, I will put that information in the description box for you. I will also link the video where we talk about the first 3 books that we'll be reading for this book club. With the next book, I am definitely leaning into the fact that I had such a fun time with another book by this author that I read, and I'm hoping that is a trend that continues. And I'm talking about Mr. Flood's Last Resort by Jess Kidd. I read Things in Jars, was it in 2021? Possibly. The years are all blurring together at this point, but I absolutely loved it. And so when I discovered this on a little sneaky crawl through Barnes & Nobles, I had to buy it. It is a book about this caregiver, Maud, who ends up sort of forming this alliance with this combative widower who lives in this like gothic mansion with a bunch of feral cats, and it just sounds like it's going to be such a wild ride. With the other Jess Kidd book, there were some supernatural elements that I thought were actually really well done, and coming from me who doesn't really enjoy supernatural elements in books, I think that says a lot. But it was very clever, it was fun, I loved the gothic vibes that it had as well. So I'm really looking forward to this one, and I think I bought it on Black Friday, so it has not been in my possession for long, but I am eager to read this one. The next book is one of the short books on this TBR, and that is Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys, which is a retelling or a prequel to Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre from the perspective of the woman in the attic. I can't really say more than that because I risk spoiling Jane Eyre if you haven't read it, but this is a book that I've heard so many good things about, and I just haven't gotten around to it, and it's not even because it's a big book. I just honestly haven't managed to read it, so I do want to get to this. I have a feeling that this could be like a favorite book of mine, so I'm very, very excited. I loved Jane Eyre. It's probably one of my most reread books of all time. That's a book I've probably reread at least a half dozen times, if not more than that, both for pleasure and for school. And so to read a prequel, to read this POV, I am very, very excited, very jazzed. The next two books are books that I spoke about not that long ago on this channel. They were in my winter TBR video, and so I figured now was a good time to actually try to make a dent in that TBR, and also they happen to be shorter books, so it works. The first one is Penelope Lively's Moon Tiger, which is a modern classic that I discovered last year and was just completely like enamored with the synopsis. It's about a woman on her deathbed who seems to be reflecting on her relationships with the most important men in her life. I think one is the father of her child, one is her like lost love, the other is a brother, I think. And so I'm very intrigued by this premise, and considering that it was also an award-winning book and is considered a modern classic, it is certainly up my alley. So I'll be looking forward to picking this one up, and it's pretty short. It's just over 200 pages, it looks like, so this should be a fairly quick read. And then the other book is Regeneration by Pat Barker. It was on that same winter TBR. It is the first book in this World War I trilogy by Pat Barker, and I'm just so hyped about it. I literally just finished reading Women of Troy by Pat Barker, and while that wasn't a 5-star read for me, it was a very, very solid 4-star. Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker was one of my favorite books of 2020, so I have a really good track record with Pat Barker, and this being historical fiction again, set during World War I rather, just seems like it's something I'm going to particularly enjoy. I do think that it's going to approach World War I from a totally different perspective than I've read previously, where it's dealing with sort of the psychology of the war, with the trauma of the war, and whether it's right or not to send these men back into the trenches when they are experiencing sort of the what was called shell shock at the time. So it should be really, really fascinating, and again, I'm looking forward to it. Pat Barker has not let me down yet, so here's hoping for another fantastic read. The next book is gonna be a little deceptive because the book itself is not small, but it is a collection of plays, and I'm only aiming to read one of those plays in January. But the book is A Doll's House and Other Plays by Henrik Ibsen, and I am planning to reread A Doll's House. I remember reading this in an English lit class in college and absolutely loving it. It is a feminist play, and I just remember the excitement of reading it and how much I enjoyed analyzing it. So I want to reread it. It has been, at this point, nearly a decade since I read it, probably, so a reread is well overdue, and I do hope that I can also kind of get through a few more of these plays throughout the year. I don't know how many of them are actually in here. I didn't check when I bought it, but A Doll's House is around 80 pages, so it's not terribly long, and plays are usually very, very quick reads for me. Also, I would like to get back into the habit of reading plays a little bit more in 2022. I know they're not like popular reads on BookTube, but I personally enjoy them, and that's what matters. So I am going to try to read A Doll's House. Usually I can read a play in one sitting, basically the amount of time that it's supposed to be like in a stage production, so this should be a pretty quick read for me as well. The next book is again going to an author that I know I have a fantabulous relationship with. It's going to be Affinity by Sarah Waters, and this is, I want to say, the fifth? I think this is the fifth Sarah Waters book that I will have endeavored to read. I think it is also one of the shortest, but I am basically here for everything Sarah Waters does at this point, so I don't think that this book can disappoint. I think all of the books I've read so far by Sarah Waters have been 4 or 5 star reads for me. So here's hoping that this continues with that trend. But this is a book that is about this young woman who ends up working in this notorious female prison in London and forming a relationship with, I believe, this would-be or potential like murderess who is incarcerated there. And Sarah Waters is like the reigning queen of gothic vibes and atmosphere and plot twists, and I am just here for it. This is also a genre that I am particularly comfortable with. I love gothic, I love historical fiction, I love Sarah Waters, so things would have to go particularly pear-shaped for me not to enjoy this book. The next book is one that I, for the life of me, can't remember whose channel I saw this book on originally, but the moment they talked about it, I think they got it from like some book box, I ordered it. And it's been on my shelf, and it's this book that I really, really want to get to because it just sounds completely up my alley. So the book is Delayed Rays of a Star by Amanda Lee Coe, and it's about how these 3 historical figures, actual women, meet up at this soiree. And the book is going to be about Marlene Dietrich, Anna May Wong, and also Leni, how do you pronounce her last name? Riefenstahl, who I believe was Hitler's like propaganda filmmaker. I believe that's her, and I'm sure that I am butchering her last name. But it seems like it's going to kind of deal with the Hollywood golden age and just have lots of glitz and glamour. And it's again historical fiction, and as someone who loves classic Hollywood and sort of that history, watches a ton of those movies, is familiar with the names of the individuals talked about in this synopsis already, I am very excited about it. I have not honestly seen anyone review this book on BookTube, so this is kind of new territory for me. I've never read anything by this author either, but I'm hoping that the subject matter is enough to make it kind of a smooth, seamless, relaxing read for me. So there you go. So yeah, those are the books that I'm putting on my actual TBR for January. I think they're pretty manageable based on how quickly I read. I do think that I can get to all of these books if I really, really try. I do want to also leave a little room to mood read with audiobooks, since one of my 2022 reading goals is to explore the romance genre a little bit more. I'd love to see which romance audiobooks might sort of tickle my fancy and try to read those as well. And if I do that, then you will see those books in my January wrap up. But that's really it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe, because that means the world to me, and it also helps this little channel grow. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!